It's 5 p.m. live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global. We'll get you the top stories from India and the region. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, and for other important news from around the world, I'm joined by my colleague Ollie Barrett in London. Ollie, how are you today?
Very well indeed, thank you, Shubhendu. It's 12:30 p.m. here in London, 1:30 p.m. across Central Europe, and coming up in the next half hour, an AI deal between London and Washington will go live to Kiev, and Blinken in Paris for talks. First, the headlines.
3 children shot in a school in Finland, 1 victim dead, 12-year-old suspect held. New Delhi slams China over remarks on Arunachal, reiterates Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of India. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Paris to meet French President Emmanuel Macron. Conflicts in Ukraine, Gaza and Haiti on the agenda. US and UK announce new partnership on artificial intelligence. Safety agreement comes amid concerns around next generation of AI. India has slammed China for renaming places in northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh. The External Affairs Ministry has said in a statement, and I quote, China has persisted with its senseless attempts to rename places in the Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh. We firmly reject such attempts. Assigning invented names will not alter the reality that Arunachal Pradesh is, has been and will always be an integral and inalienable part of India, unquote. India's Union Minister Kiran Rijiju took to X to say that India has the sovereign right to develop its border area, and every Indian has an absolute right to visit every part of the country's territory. Minister Rijiju wrote that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has changed the Congress policy of keeping the nation's border underdeveloped and made the border villages the first village of the country.
पलट करके अब सारे बॉर्डर एरिया में रास्ते बन रहे हैं, वहाँ पे बेसिक सुविधा 4G नेटवर्क पहुँच रहे हैं, स्कूल, वहाँ मेडिकल फैसिलिटीज़, गांव में पीने का पानी, बिजली सब पहुँच रहे हैं। तो ये काम बहुत तेज़ी से चल रही है, इसलिए चीन बहुत ही घबराया हुआ है, खफा है, भड़के हुए हैं। तो इसलिए वो जो नामकरण हो रहा है, तो नामकरण करने से क्या कोई बदल जाएगा क्या? मेरा जगह है, मेरा ज़मीन है, मेरा पहाड़ है, उसमें चीन कैसे आकर के नाम रखेगा? कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता।
US and UK are planning to come together in a big way in the domain of artificial intelligence. Ollie Barrett is in London, gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Ollie, it will be interesting to see the next big development in AI.
It will indeed, and the US and the UK are trying to get ahead of the curve here, Shubhendu. They've announced a new partnership on artificial intelligence safety. The agreement comes amid concerns about upcoming next-generation versions of AI. US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo and British Technology Secretary Michelle Donlan have signed a memorandum of understanding in Washington, D.C. Britain and the US are among the countries establishing a government-led AI Safety Institute. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, meanwhile, has arrived in Paris for talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. Antony Blinken is on a 5-day trip to Europe, taking in France and Belgium. After arriving in Paris, the top US diplomat held a meeting with the French Defense Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, and he's set to meet as well with French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné. He'll be heading to Brussels on Wednesday to attend the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting. There he'll be meeting with the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, as well as the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba. He'll participate in the 6th US-EU Trade and Technology Council near Brussels as well during the trip. DD India's Ross Cullen sent us this report.
He is going to be holding a working lunch with Stéphane Séjourné, his French counterpart, in a couple of hours' time, and the two men will hold a press conference after that. And then at the end of the afternoon, local time here, Antony Blinken and Emmanuel Macron will hold face-to-face talks behind closed doors at the Élysée Palace. Lots for them to discuss. The Middle East will be top of the agenda, the situation in Gaza, trying to see if there can be a way to avoid this planned Israeli offensive in Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. Also reaction to that strike believed to be by Israel on an apartment complex in Damascus, killing leading Iranian commanders. That could well see an escalation and a response by Tehran, potentially to Israel. So they'll be discussing that situation, the ongoing attempts to try to find a temporary or a permanent ceasefire, more aid for the Palestinians to try to avoid famine inside the Gaza Strip. So the Middle East will be high on the agenda. Ukraine as well. Stéphane Séjourné, the French foreign minister, just back from a trip to Beijing, and so he will be updating his American counterparts on the latest there. We know that he and Mr. Séjourné did push Beijing to try to bring forward a resolution to the conflict using Beijing's influence with Moscow, asking China to play a key role in bringing the conflict to a close with its ally in the Kremlin. So there will be discussions about the Middle East, discussions about Ukraine, Haiti, as you mentioned, former French colony in the Caribbean. Lots for the two men to get their teeth stuck into over lunch, and then also in the meetings with Emmanuel Macron later.
Well, Syria and Iran have both condemned an airstrike on the Iranian consulate in Syria's capital, Damascus, that Ross was just mentioning there, where 7 people were killed, including 3 senior Iranian commanders. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre says the US president is aware of reports of Israeli airstrikes in Damascus. An Israeli military spokesperson said that it would not comment on foreign media reports. Sources suggest the US told Iran that it had no involvement nor prior knowledge of the strike, but Iran's supreme leader says the US remains responsible whether Washington was aware or not in advance of the incident. DD India's Alex Cadier sent us this report from Tel Aviv.
Strike attributed by Iranian state media to the Israeli Air Force. We understand that it was hit a building adjacent to the Iranian embassy, which the Iranians say was being used as a consular building. We understand that General Mohammad Reza Zahedi was the Revolutionary Guard's commander in Syria and Lebanon. He, his deputy, and 5 other Revolutionary Guard members were killed in this strike, and we understand that he was the most senior Iranian commander killed since the US strike against Qasem Soleimani in January 2020. So this will be seen as a very high-level strike. Now, we do not have confirmation from the Israelis that they were behind this strike, but security sources speaking to the Reuters news agency, as well as Iranian state media, confirming that the Israelis were behind this strike. Now, we've heard from the Iranian president who has sworn that a response would come. We heard that from the Iranian ambassador to Damascus yesterday, who said Iran will decisively respond. Now, the real concern here in Israel is that this could lead to an escalation in the conflict in the north, of course, because Hezbollah is backed by Iran, and Hezbollah has also vowed to avenge those killed in this strike. Now, that conflict in the north of Israel, on the border with Lebanon, with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon firing rockets into Israel and the Israeli forces retaliating, that conflict really has been simmering over the last few weeks, and there's a real concern now that following this strike and following Iran's response, we could see that simmer turn to a boil and this conflict turning to all-out war in the north.
Ukrainian drones have targeted Russia's 3rd largest oil refinery. about 1,300 kilometers from the front lines in Ukraine. The attack took place in Tatarstan, a highly industrialized region southeast of Moscow, in the early hours of Tuesday local time, injuring at least 7 people. Meanwhile, Russian state media claims a fire broke out at the refinery that was extinguished within 20 minutes and says production has not been disrupted. Well, we can go live now to DD India's Megami Lim, who's in Kiev for us. Megami, tell us more about the latest attack and its significance.
Well, this latest Ukrainian drone attack is significant because it not only hit Russia's third largest oil refinery, but this was the longest range strike carried out by Ukrainian drones inside Russian territory in this 2 years of war. The attack hit a core unit of the Taneko oil refinery in the Tatarstan Russian region of Russia, which is about 1,300 kilometers away from the front lines, away from Ukraine, and that is a huge distance to cover undetected. And we have to keep in mind that drones are a lot slower moving than missiles. And this attack, which was carried out by Ukrainian drones, hit a core unit of this Taneko refinery, which has an annual production capacity of about 17 million tons, which is equivalent to about 340,000 barrels a day. And the core unit accounts for about half of the annual production capacity of this oil refinery. Now, this Taneko oil refinery was reportedly not the only target that was hit. According to Ukrainian intelligence sources cited in a Reuters report, Ukrainian drones also hit a Russian drone manufacturing facility and caused significant damage. But the mayor of the region has said that this drone attack has not caused any casualties or significant damage. So there's not much that we know about this attack against this drone manufacturing facility. But what we do know is that Ukraine has, over the past few weeks, really stepped up its attacks against Russian industrial facilities, especially oil refineries. And this latest attack could be considered a very significant one and a big success for Ukraine, because it may have significantly crippled a large portion of Russia's oil producing capacity, and because its Ukrainian-made drones managed to fly that distance.
Okay, Megami, thank you. That's DD India's Megami Lim live in Kiev. In Finland, a shooting incident inside a school has killed 1 child and left 2 other children injured. Police have cordoned off the school building and a 12-year-old suspect has been held. Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo has expressed deep shock over the incident and says his thoughts are with the victims and their families. The shooting took place at the Vietola school in Helsinki's Vantaa city, which has around 800 students from 1st to 9th grade and 90 staff. Several US states are holding presidential primaries on Tuesday, with President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump expected to win across the board. Voters will head to the polls in the states of Wisconsin, Connecticut, New York, and Rhode Island. But some residents are planning on using the vote as an opportunity to protest against those leading candidates, as DD India's Sally Patterson reports from New York.
US President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump are the favourites in their respective primaries. Neither candidate faces a strong challenge, and they've both already secured more delegates than they need to win their party's nominations. That process will happen at their conventions in July and August. That's when the Biden-Trump rematch becomes official. But that doesn't mean it's all smooth sailing. Voters can decide to register a protest vote against Biden or Trump if they're not happy with the options. In Connecticut and Rhode Island, residents will have the option of voting uncommitted. In Wisconsin, voters can choose uninstructed delegation on their ballot. Wisconsin is a pivotal battleground state in the US, and some voters there are organising over the war in Gaza. A group of activists are aiming to show they're unhappy with Biden's ongoing support for Israel by refusing to vote for him on the ballot. But analysts warn caution in putting too much significance on Gaza when it comes to the US electorate. According to Gallup research, According to Gallup Research Group, the number of voters who list it as the nation's most important problem is under 1%. The leading key issue for voters include the economy, immigration and crime. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
And with that, I'll hand it back to you in New Delhi, Shibendu.
Thanks very much, Oli, for joining me with those updates. Moving on, Israel says a new Gaza truce and hostage proposal has been drafted and presented to Hamas in Cairo. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said as part of the talks in Cairo, the Israeli mediators formulated an up-to-date proposal to be addressed by Hamas with the helpful mediation from Egypt. The office added that Israel expects the mediators to push Hamas harder to reach a deal. And still to come on DD India Global. Army Commanders Conference held in New Delhi. South Korea's President Yoon urges doctors to end impasse.
As a cycle of accountability returns, the time has come when the biggest democracy chooses to write another chapter in its glorious history. Development, justice, regionalism, a big political canvas. Everything will be put to test in this mega battle for glory. DD India dissects what makes elections 2024 the battle royale in Indian politics. Data and analysis free from bias to help you understand why India matters. The Great Indian Election on weekdays at 8:30 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh attended the Army Commanders Conference in New Delhi on Tuesday. The apex leadership of the Army is deliberating upon the emerging threat scenario, operational challenges, reform and plans for modernization. One of the key items on the agenda are cyber security, integration with other services and futuristic warfare technologies. The first for the year 2024 Army Commanders Conference was held in virtual mode on 28th March and thereafter two-day physical mode began on Monday. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar attended Bharat Bhagya Vidhata program in the western state of Gujarat. He spoke about India's democratic journey and economic growth.
हमने पिछले 10 साल में ये साबित किया है कि डेमोक्रेसी कैन डिलीवर, कि आज जो है ये भारत जो कोविड के बावजूद, क्योंकि बहुत सारे देश जो हैं अभी तक उनकी कोविड के बाद, महामारी के बाद उनकी इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी नहीं हुई है, कि कोविड के बाद अगर फिर से हम अभी 7% ग्रोथ की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं तो दुनिया सोचती है कि भाई ये सचमुच कमाल की बात है.
North Korea fired a ballistic missile off the country's east coast in a move that sparked immediate condemnation from Prime Minister of Japan. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said that it detected the launch of what appeared to be a ballistic missile of an intermediate range class from the area of North Korean capital Pyongyang. Japan's Coast Guard said the apparent missile had already fallen into the sea. Amid concerns, Russia and North Korea are developing closer military links. US and its major Asian allies, South Korea and Japan, are expanding security cooperation. US is arranging a summit between President Joe Biden and his Japanese and South Korean counterparts in July on the sidelines of a NATO summit in Washington, D.C. This is the third test of ballistic missiles from Kim Jong-un's regime this year. On 18th March, North Korea fired at least 6 short-range ballistic missiles as the leader oversaw tests of multiple rocket launcher systems. Meanwhile, South Korea on Tuesday imposed sanctions on 2 Russian individuals and their companies linked to North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. It will also slap sanctions on 2 Russian vessels involved in shipping containers of military supplies between Moscow and Pyongyang. Japan has lodged protest over suspected North Korea ballistic missile launch into the Sea of Japan. Japan's Prime Minister Kishida Fumio condemned North Korea for the launch that he said affected peace and stability in the region. He said there was no confirmed damage because of the missile. In other developments, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol on Tuesday urged doctors on strike to join medical staff as he hinted the first signs of flexibility in his medical reform plan. The medical plan aimed at boosting medical school admissions by 2,000 from 3,000 starting in 2025 has emerged as a key issue in the parliamentary elections of the country. The walkout by thousands of trainee doctors nationwide in protest at the plan is increasingly putting pressure on the country's healthcare system. In a significant boost to its defense capabilities, South American country of Guyana has received 2 Dornier planes from India's Hindustan Aeronautics Limited (HAL). Guyana's President Dr. Irfan Ali said, and I quote, "The planes arrived at the Cherry Jagan International Airport last evening aboard 2 Boeing C-17 Globemaster military transport planes," unquote. An Indian Air Force team in Guyana delivered the aircraft as part of India's line of credit agreement signed on 15th of March. The Dornier 228 aircraft is well known for its versatility and reliability, making it an ideal choice for a wide range of military and civilian applications. Elections on 30 vacant Senate seats are currently underway in Pakistan's National Assembly and provincial legislatures of Punjab and Sindh. Polling in the provincial assemblies of Sindh and Punjab began at 9 a.m. local time. In Islamabad, polling is being held for the election of 2 senators. 18 candidates were elected unopposed from Punjab and Balochistan. The Election Commission of Pakistan has notified postponement of Senate elections in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa due to the dispute over oath-taking of members elected on reserve seats. The Senate has remained dysfunctional since 11th March after retirement of 52 lawmakers. Let's now turn to other stories making news around the world. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was sworn in on Tuesday before Parliament for his 3rd term. Sisi is set to remain president until 2030 after winning a December vote with 89.6% of the polling. The vote also marked the inauguration of Egypt's new administration capital, located in the desert east of Cairo. 8 people died in Albania on Tuesday after a car carrying suspected migrants swerved off a mountain road into a ravine. The car fell on the rocky bank of the fast-flowing Vosa River, below a road that police says is frequently used by migrants. A man was rescued from the side of a California cliff after he fell about 50 to 60 feet and was left clinging for his life. A helicopter rescued him, was flown to the top of the cliff. Later, the victim was sent for a medical evaluation. The incident took place near the Battery Alexander Trail in the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Google agreed to destroy billions of data records to settle a lawsuit, claiming that it secretly tracked the internet use of people who thought they were browsing privately. Terms of the settlement were filed on Monday in a court in the state of California. It requires approval by the judge. Lawyers for the plaintiffs valued the accord at more than $5 billion and as high as $7.8 billion. A recent excavation at Kanchanaburi's Sangkalaburi district of Thailand has uncovered a World War II bunker. The bunker is believed to have been constructed during the era when Japanese troops compelled prisoners of war to build the infamous Thailand-Burma Railway, commonly referred to as the Death Railway. Belgium is seeking UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage status for its rod puppetry and a 1,680 square meter flower carpet rolled out every second year in front of its capital, Brussels City Hall. Take a look at these Belgian traditions.
puppet theatre will present the beautiful cloak and dagger play. Where's my cap? Thank you.
Lots of people are involved in this.
Hier, wat een misère, wat een misère. Maar de poten zijn in sloep gevallen.
Colourful heritage of Belgium. But that's all in this edition of DD India Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.